and thank you for joining us for BlackDoctor.org's Cancer Awareness Summit. I'm your host, Shamika Rhymes, and we are ending today with a conversation about multiple myeloma. It's a serious blood cancer that affects our community more than people realize. So let me know in the chat where you are watching from. Make sure to share this with your network because you never know who may need to see it. And if you have any questions at all tonight, make sure you drop that in the chat as well. So too often, we don't hear much about multiple myeloma unless it touches someone that we know. And by then, it's already advanced. So that's why tonight's discussion is so important, understanding the risks, the signs, and the steps that we can take early on that can truly make a difference. So let me introduce you to tonight's guest. Kim Delaney is here tonight, and I'm going to let her tell you all about who she is. And you've seen her here before. I think there she is. Hi, Kim.
Hey, Shamika, how are you?
Good. Welcome back. So tell the people who you are, or remind them. That's a better way to say it. Remind them who you are.
So my name is Kim Delaney. I'm actually from East Tennessee. Grew up in Johnson City, so right there at the mountain, and actually moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, literally like 20 years ago, which seems insane to me. I was just living life, being ordinary, wanting more for my family. So that's what put me here in the Carolinas. And life literally started happening when I got here. So I am a mother. I am a small business owner. I am soon to be a political figure. So I'm all the things, very active with my family and my community. And I was diagnosed with two immune illnesses. So multiple myeloma, which is a blood cancer, and amyloidosis, which is where the body starts to store like protein deposits within the body. Typically it attacks your main organs, your major organs. So mine attacked at my small intestines, and since then has kind of spread to all the intestines, the colon, the stomach. So it kind of changed a lot with my lifestyle. So like now I'm vegan because it became a point where food hurt. So I became very particular about what I put in my body to kind of subside the symptoms of the pain that comes with cancer. So went through that battle about 12, 13 years ago. I think it was like 2013 when I was finally diagnosed. And so I've been fighting that, have been in remission a couple of times, but have been in remission this last time for about 3 years. But now I have, other things that have arisen. So just kind of keeping my life as normal as possible, living purposely, being my own best advocate, especially in healthcare.
Yes.
And as these times kind of come where we are right now, which is what will healthcare look like? So as a patient, a very active patient, that is a little terrifying to know what that could end up being. But all in all, I'm still the same person. Still here trying to conquer the world and make things different, but that's me in a nutshell.
Well, I am so glad that you could come back. I'm glad you answered the phone when I called. Kim and I go way back. we both, well, I spent time in East Tennessee and for college, and then moved here. You know what? 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So,
crazy.
I guess we followed each other here.
Right.
Kim, can you, talk to us about looking back? What would you say? And actually, let me back up. For women who may be hearing this for the first time, because Lord knows I was pronouncing it all wrong earlier. So thank goodness for Google, and having to go back and revisit an interview you and I did before. But how would you describe what multiple myeloma is in your own words?
Complicated for sure. It is a blood cancer. So, the body reuses blood all day long. There's never a cure for it. There are medications that put you into remission. Some patients will take what's considered a maintenance drug. I was very adamant in saying that I did not want that for my care, which kind of says you continue to take this high dose or low dose of something that kind of keeps your immune system at bay, but you're still susceptible to getting sick. And with my GI issues from an amyloid, everything attacks my gut. So anytime that there's like a side effect that lists, gut activity, I am definitely going to get it. So I'm very particular about, how I move forward with my care. So, nutrition plays a big part of that to kind of stay at bay on that side of it. But like when I was first diagnosed, I just had a lot of pain. Like my body just hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first indicators for me is, so even let me say this too, because this is very important. I never used to go to the doctor. I would go get my eyes examined every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was even late getting my PAP in life. Maybe I was 20 when I got my first PAP because I was terrified. But I just didn't have the money. So I never carried insurance.
Okay. Okay.
So even when I had my child, at the time we were still in Tennessee, so I made sure he had 10 care. But I purposely did not, sorry, I thought my phone was off. But I
Okay.
purposely, I know I couldn't afford insurance, so I never had it because I never got sick. I
Mm-hmm.
never got sick. I might get the flu occasionally, but I was not one to get sick. So I just was like, there's no need for me to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God I got it when I did, because my insurance definitely came in handy when it was time to go through transplant and all those costly things. So
Okay.
it was terrifying and it hurt, and it took a while for them to figure out what I had. But yeah, that was like the initial steps to
Okay.
it.
So just so I understand, was it just like real intense stomach pain, or were there any other symptoms that you were experiencing, or that you even overlooked
Mhm.
because you may have been thinking, maybe something I ate, or I'm good, I'll be all
Right,
right, or it's a bug or something that I caught,
right,
because you may not have connected it to
correct.
something you probably hadn't even heard of at that time,
Yeah,
right?
right. So, um, like I would be super tired a lot. Like it was just kind of like a joint or a bone ache, and then my back would hurt constantly. And I remember I had seen my primary care, and I called and I was like, we're not crazy in the bedroom, but like something is wrong. Something's really wrong. And my back is killing me since like,
Yeah.
last week or whatever. She was like, no,
Mhm.
that doesn't sound accurate. So she sent me for scans. And so like I had been hurting for a while, even when I ate, it was
Mhm.
like this really intense pain. And then I would be bloated instantly. Like if agitation or stress was a huge trigger, my stomach would automatically bloat. And so I was telling her all these things. And so she sent me for some testing. They could never see anything. And so by the time they were actually able to see the spots of my spine, it was too late. The cancer had already kind of started messing with my bone density. Um,
Okay.
and then how I ended up in the hospital is I had came back from a flight in California. I was out there for a show. And at the time I was married. And so he had picked me up from um, the airport, and this is when I was still eating meat. So we stopped at the Bojangles right there when you leave the airport. And I
Mhm.
remember coming home, like I could barely eat when we were there. And like that night, I was just sick as a dog. And for a week straight, again, never got sick. So for a
Mhm.
week straight, I couldn't keep anything down. Water, nothing. I was hurting. And because, we Black women, we don't really go to the doctor. It's not what we do.
Mhm.
I remember when my girlfriends had called, and she was talking to my husband at the time, and she said, something's wrong. It's been a week. She has
Yeah.
insurance, take her to the doctor. And so I
Mhm.
didn't fight him. I was just like, yeah, let's go.
Mhm.
Stayed in the hospital almost 7 days, and they
Wow.
could not figure out what was wrong with me. They took every test under the sun, every lab, um, down the throat, up the booty, like everything
Mhm.
possible. And the doctor on call just happened to be a hematologist. And so
Mhm.
he came in and sat with me. He was like, I don't know what's wrong with you. And, I've said this to you before, like I'm kind of green about certain stuff. So I remember
Yeah.
him being like, I can tell that you're not here for pills. Like, I was like, what? People come to the hospital for pills? Like, this is
Oh,
a pain.
yeah. Yeah.
So he was like, I can tell by looking at you that you're really in pain, but I don't know what's wrong with you.
Mhm.
And so right before he discharged me, they sent in one more surgeon. He was so evil. Zero bedside manner, like none. And he came in, he was like, I don't know what they want me to do this test on you for. I just not gonna show anything. And I was just like, God dog, okay.
Mhm.
And he did, I think he went down my throat, I believe. Yeah, he went down. Um, and so we did that in hospital. They released me. He called me back like within 2 days and was like, I know what you have, but I'm have you come in. We're gonna do a colonoscopy so I can rule out what it is. So I did the colonoscopy, came back, and he was like, I don't know how to explain to you what you have because it's so rare.
Mhm.
I'm gonna refer you back to hematology. Doesn't mean that's what this is, but they're the closest to what you have. So
Mhm.
lo when I went to the hospital, it was that same doctor that I had on call.
Oh, wow.
And like literally, as horrible as it was, like the whole experience was just so like God had his hand on it. So like during this
Mhm.
time, I was working for Red Cross, so I learned a lot about blood. And then, having that same doctor both times, and I remember him saying every time he would tell me something like, "We don't know, we're just going to see," it would come out to be like that's what it is. So when
Yeah.
he finally, knew exactly what I had from the scans, he was like, "It's so crazy. I was supposed to go to this symposium with his doctor. He's like one of a handful in the U.S. and he's in
Mhm.
Chapel Hill." He was like, "So I tuned into the radio and heard it, and it was about amyloidosis." He was like, "We don't hear that around here. There's like a case a year."
Mhm.
So he's like, "I'm going to refer you there." So I did half of my care here in Concord with Atrium and the other half in UNC Chapel Hill because there were specialists specifically for multiple myeloma and for amyloid. And so I
Okay.
did that there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And then my doctor that I told you about, he actually transferred here. So
Mhm.
I've been him for the past 12 years. And
Mhm.
so, what I like about that is um, I feel like we know each other. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I know that he's going to go to bat for me. And I've had so many other professionals in medicine say, "I talked to your doctor. He's amazing." Like he really goes
Mhm.
to his patients. And I appreciate that because I'm super stubborn and
Mhm.
I'm going to do the status quo if I can help it. And so I appreciate that he takes my feedback on my care and answers all my questions. And it's just been a really good relationship moving forward.
So, what you had, was it, are those both blood cancers or is it just,
So they're both blood related. So multiple
okay,
myeloma and blood cancer. It's almost like first cousins. Like you have to have one to have the other.
gotcha.
And I'm not sure why the amyloid comes to surface with the myeloma. Like not everybody has both,
Uh-huh.
but if you have one, usually if you have amyloid, you probably have multiple myeloma.
Okay. Now, did you have a, I mean, I know the answer to this, but just for those watching, did you have a family history that you were aware of, or is this something you kind of had to go back and be like, okay, where did this come from?
Right. So to make matters even more complex, I'm
Mhm.
adopted. So I'm from Memphis, and there's like a small percent of information that I knew growing up. But I actually got my records opened when my daughter, she's now 10, when she was, actually, no, I'm sorry. When my son was, we were still in Johnson City, but I was able to kind of get those medical records and those family records and start to reach out. So we created relationships with my birth family as well. Um, there are indicators within the family.
Mhm.
However, when I asked my doctor specifically if what I have is hereditary, it is not. There are hereditary strains of
Mhm.
multiple myeloma. Mine is not.
Mhm.
But I say that, but after talking to my birth father, his both his parents passed away from some form of cancer.
Mhm.
And then the last time he and I talked, he had something funky with his blood. And this was a couple years ago, and they were trying to figure out what it was. So I said, make sure you ask him about amyloid to see if that might be it.
Mhm.
So thus far, I don't think my case is tied to family.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, you also, part of your treatment for, and I guess, and I don't know if it's separate treatments or because since we're talking about multiple myeloma specifically for this panel, what that treatment looks like for you. I know you said you went to Chapel Hill. So was it chemo? And I vaguely recall, did you have stem cell
Mhm.
transplant or something like that? Can you talk a little bit about that treatment?
Absolutely. The funny thing is, like, I remember when well, we're probably about the same age. So I remember when we were little, and like Nancy Reagan, there's this whole to do about stem cells.
Yeah.
I, not like I even knew what she was talking about, but I remember people like being so against it. And
Mhm.
I was like, that sounds interesting. Like that sounds like that is helpful. So
Yeah.
part of my wellness regimen was I did chemo. I did pill form, which like I told you, anything pill form just crushes me. So that
Mhm.
was super painful. Like it hurt my stomach. So we either did like and basically there were low doses of chemotherapy. There's another word they say for it. I can't think of it right now. So I did that. I also did so right before you have your stem cell transplant for multiple myeloma, they give you a really high dose of chemo.
Mhm.
And so that's probably the worst of it I got because that's when my hair fell out. So like unless you knew my story, you just thought I was losing weight.
Mhm.
couldn't eat jack, but yeah, because I kept, all my hair, my eyebrows, my hair, all that was there until I did that big dose before getting admitted to the hospital, and that's
Mhm.
when it started falling out. So for me, it was a lot of inpatient visits, um, get administered through IV, and then doing so much of it orally as well. Never did radiation, but the chemo regimen um, healed me enough to be able to do stem cells. So the disease has to be smoldered
Mhm.
or kind of a trace only for you to even get to the next step. So I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure if I would still do the same thing today,
Mhm.
knowing what I know.
Okay. Now, what for those that aren't aware of, like, so is the stem cell? How does the stem cell treatment work? Is that through an IV? Do you have to have a donor? How does
Right.
that work?
I think it all depends on you. So they
Okay.
test you. Um, so I was my own stem cell donor,
Okay.
because of how my makeup was. Like um, there's a certain chromosome that you need in the body that indicates if you can do that or not. So
Mhm.
I think it's ontogous and antagolous is the two words. So I was ontogous. So what they did is, um, I think it was another big dose of chemo, and then it's almost like you give, like when you give platelets, like you lay in the chair, the two arms, and so
Mhm.
there's this huge machine that's like, I don't know, maybe a foot wide, 2 foot high, and they connect you like an IV, and so they're taking your platelets out, or your cells out, and
Mhm.
like cleaning them, and then they give you the chemo, and then they feed the cells back in. So it was an interesting process,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's how it all really kind of starts.
So I'm thinking back to an episode of Celebration when my friend Anthony Austin, he's a news anchor in Jacksonville, he came on the show to talk about being a donor.
Mm,
And I can't remember exactly what type of cancer off the top of my head that the man that he helped out by donating the stem cell. So,
yeah,
it sounds exactly like the process he was talking about too,
yeah,
because he said he was it didn't take very long, because he's a big guy, and it didn't take us that long, and they treated him very well. And yeah, so he talked a lot about that. From your experience,
mm.
why do you think early detection is so critical, especially when it comes to multiple myeloma? And do you think it would have made a difference for you?
I think your body tells you.
Mhm.
Like, again, I was never one to get sick, but I knew something was off.
Mhm.
And every time I've had that feeling, something has been off. Like my body tells me pretty quickly. Absolutely, early detection is pivotal. Having your routine checkups, whatever that looks like for you, having routine blood work, because our blood is literally our Bible. Like it gives them the answer to everything.
Mhm.
And so having that is super crucial because that dictates how aggressive they need to be with the cancer. Um,
Mhm.
in my personal opinion, it dictates survival rate. Chemo is absolutely horrible. It is probably, to me, it felt like going through the depths of hell. Like it is absolutely horrible. You can't
Mhm.
describe it. You can't eat. You can't sleep. Everything hurts. You have 1,000 emotions.
Mhm.
And so absolutely, I think, and then two, the earlier the better. So, you're not losing out a whole lot on your lifestyle. Like things can
Mhm.
kind of stay the same. And for me specifically, like we had a game plan. Like I knew when it was time for me to do the transplant, I'd be out of work for 3 months. Okay, so then that gave me opportunity to my employer. Here's what's going on. Here's what we can do. And at the time, I was a buyer, so I was able to work with my importers and make
Mhm.
sure we get, purchase orders in and have them staggered out for the year. So I try to make sure that things were in place so that
Mhm.
my physical absence wouldn't hinder the things that I had to do in day-to-day life.
Mentally, how were you? Especially, let's say, from the moment the doctor said, "This is what you have," to the
Yeah,
point where you were like, and you made the decision, "Okay, I'm gonna do the stem cell." What mentally, what was going on? Because, like you said, you had a son at this point
yeah,
and a
yeah,
husband.
right. It I feel like it's nothing like the movies. I think like I wasn't even initially scared. I don't even know if I was in shock. Like I remember him saying it, it's been like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
And like just having that kind of attitude for a while. but I'll get mad as well. You know what I mean? Like I'm out here, I'm not a bad person. I'm doing the things I'm
Mhm.
supposed to do. I'm a follower. Like this isn't. I never say
Mhm.
this isn't fair because I always feel like you you cannot you cannot be prepared for it, but you also can't like pick and choose what your battles are going to be in life. But
Mhm.
I knew off top it wasn't my end sentence. I knew that was not going to take me out of here, and I kept that mindset the whole time. So for
Mhm.
me, it was mindset was everything. And
Mhm.
so knowing that my story, my outcome would be something I could utilize for other people moving forward, which is what I've done the whole time. So
Mhm.
any herbs I've done, any regimens that I did, I actually created a document because people always ask me like, "What did you do? I want to share this with my sister." And so I literally made. I've stopped people in the store and been like,
Mhm.
I have this list of information if you want it. Not saying it to heal you, but just some steps because there's so much information out there.
Mhm.
Um, but then, of course, you have your horrible days. And on my horrible days, I let myself have those days. And I lay in bed and I cry and I do the things I'm mad. And then the next morning, I just get up and do it again. But
Mhm.
God is funny because every time I have that day, specifically with the cancer piece, somebody will call me and be like, "Hey, I need your help. Such and such just got diagnosed. I don't know what to do." And I'm like, "Okay, get out of your head. You
Mhm.
know, work to do." So it's definitely hard. You never forget. You kind of live in this constant fear of you become a hypochondriac. So I tell my doctor, like I feel like a freaking hypochondriac. Like every time something's wrong, I'm like, "Oh God, it's back." You know,
Mhm.
you do kind of live with that fear all the time, no matter how long you've been in remission.
Mhm. And I was just thinking, I think I sent a couple people your way, actually, maybe during that time. Now that I'm thinking about it, like, Kim,
Right.
you need your
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and my son went to Berrybrook, the general the herbal store in Charlotte, the little
Mhm.
red, yeah, with the red wagon
Yeah.
out front. And it was this summer, like he wanted some vitamins, so we went over there. And this man is coming through the aisle. He has all this stuff in his hands. He goes through the restroom. He's like, "My wife was just diagnosed. I'm just trying to get the things." Girl, I gave him my email. We did talk and all the things. Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
so horrible. Like, nobody needs to go through that. It's the worst. It is the absolute worst. So, yeah.
So let me remind everybody in the chat. I see y'all checking in from everywhere from Chicago, Utah, Valdosta, Georgia, Gastonia. I see y'all. Thank you for checking in. And make sure if you have any comments or questions, just drop it in the chat. Kim and I are just chatting about multiple myeloma. Um, Kim, how can patients advocate for themselves or seek a second opinion when they do feel like something isn't right? Because like you said, some people just don't like going to the doctor. I'm one, if I see a scratch, I'm like, let me go to the doctor. Like
Yeah.
I'm very much like, I'm not playing. But some people aren't, like you said, you weren't
Right.
like that. You were
Yeah.
just like I'm not going to the doctor. So how can people make sure that they are the CEO of their health and
Right.
advocate for themselves?
Right. I think it really is. It just starts with your voice. It starts with you just being like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or,
Mhm.
like with me, like with the maintenance drug, that was one thing I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not living my life glued to the chair because I can't get up from being so weak
Yeah.
and vomiting everywhere. And so
Hmm.
it really is you understanding that you dictate your outcome. It's your bill, it's
Hmm.
your health. So you being a very active person in that, but if you're going to be, kind of this stubborn patient, you also that comes with responsibility. Like I can be stubborn because I choose to
Yeah.
research and ask my doctor 1,000 questions. There is
Hmm.
nothing I'm to ask that man, and he has looked at me really crazy sometimes. But it's okay. I don't
Yeah.
care. And so I think, yeah. So with that, you have to be, you know, thoughtful enough and care enough to do the research for yourself about, your own disease and your own health.
So I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. I meant to ask then, but I was like, this is the perfect segue. You said if you knew if you knew then what you know now, you wouldn't have done. I think it was the stem cell.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I don't mind so much the stem cell because I still, even, as a child, I
Okay.
still believe in the hope of that, right?
Okay.
That we're basically healing our body with our bodies.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure chemo was the answer.
Okay.
But in the moment, you're so sick, you just want to do better. Like I wasn't in fear of dying. I just wanted to feel better. Right.
Hmm.
And so I think like because of my illness, I went hard with holistic medicine.
Hmm.
There's a gentleman I actually worked with when I was a buyer. he was in another department. He was much older than me, but he was going through treatment as well. And you wouldn't know unless you just happened to find out. Like
Mhm.
never lost weight, never lost, hair loss, like none of the things. He was getting his treatments done in Mexico. And so I really think
Mhm.
in totality, I think our medical system is just really jacked up. There's two, and I just had this conversation today with the ribbon cutting I told you about earlier, with the new doctor. There's too many brilliant
Mhm.
people in our society for us not to have, and I don't mean to get on my soapbox, for us not to have cures to so many of these horrendous
Mhm.
diseases. But there's
Mhm.
truth in, there's money in sickness. If you can keep me sick, I have to keep coming back to get my pills. There's a routine there, and it's a billion-dollar industry for a reason. But I think that God gives us plants, and they have been medicine for years. Look at our ancestors. We look at the Indian tribes, like they've always used herbs as medicine. And when you kind of really
Mhm.
roll that back, I think it has some validity to it.
Okay. Now, what year were you diagnosed? What year was that?
It was like 2011, 2012, but I didn't go through treatment until like 2013.
Okay, and then you mentioned you have a 10-year-old. So how did that happen? Because I recall you telling me they said you wouldn't be able to have kids.
Right. So when I got sick, I was in my mid 30s. I think I was 35, 34, something like that. So at the time I was the youngest, kind of still am the youngest patient my doctor has.
Mhm.
So he said, we have tons of research for people in their 20s and tons of research for people, like 40 and 50, but you're right in the middle. We have no idea which way it's going to go.
Mhm.
So once we went through um went through the stem cell treatment, released from the hospital, and basically everything was wiped clean. Like all your childhood immunizations, those are gone. I had lost my cycle, so I didn't have a period anymore. And then so I was talking to my doctor, and we were about to start a maintenance drug. And I think we had just started one because I was fresh out of treatment.
Mhm.
And I think I was on it maybe a week or two. And I remember I got my period back. And I was like one of those crazy women who, when they get the shots, they're like, we got to go now. Like, we're ovulating, we're going now. I became that woman. I was like, let's go. So we got pregnant really quick. And yeah, and the crazy part is we had just eloped. So we got married because we did another Vegas trip. We got married, but our goal, because we felt like we were living in sin, which we were. So our
Yeah.
goal was to that summer have an actual wedding, invite everybody because both our families are really close. Honey, I've got that little stick came out positive. I said, we're telling everybody now, and we're telling them everything.
Yeah.
I called my doctor first, and he was like, "Oh my God, are you sure? Like the medicine that you're on, it causes birth defects. Like they found it out in the 70s. That's why they pulled it, but we're using it for you for something else." I was like, "If God ordained it, I am not concerned." And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's she's here. So her name is Grace,
Mhm.
and she is feisty. She was a month early, but so is my oldest son, and she's perfectly fine.
She sure is. She sure is. So
Yeah.
what kind of support and then the last panel we were talking about the financial aspect
Mm.
of dealing with cancer. Can you talk about that? And if you're not comfortable, that's totally fine. I'm just all in your business right now. But can you talk about that aspect? Because you went through chemo, the stem cell treatment, then the drugs. How how were you able to do that? Or were there resources available?
Right. So from a resource perspective,
Mhm.
mentally, I didn't have the capacity to take on anything else. Like I had
Yeah.
a homegirl who had lost her mother at the time, and she was like, you could do this and you can fill this out for the Leukemia Foundation. It felt like such a chore that I
Mhm.
don't think I even got to that paperwork. I think I did it one time, and it was so complicated. It felt so complicated right in the moment.
Mhm.
Um, Casework at the hospital, they were really helpful, especially for resources for Zion, because I wanted to make sure that mentally he had somebody to kind of help him through the
Yeah.
process, right? To be on his
Mhm.
level. So we found Camp Kasem for him, and he enjoyed that. He went every summer. So Camp Kasem is zero plug. It's just helpful. But
Mhm.
Camp Kasem is for kids who are experiencing a parent or a guardian that's going through treatment, and it helps them be together with other kids going through the same stuff. They go for free because the college counselors that attend, they raise money the whole year to be able to be a counselor, but to also offer a camp for the kids for free. So it's always 2 weeks out of the year. I think Duke and UNC do it, but lots of colleges throughout the U.S. do it. But it gives the
Mhm.
kids that portal to express themselves. So that was very important for me that he had that.
Mhm.
Um, and then honestly, I just kept working, and the grace of God, because I had moved from South Charlotte to Concord, but I was commuting all the way to Hillsborough, which is almost in Durham. So that
Yeah.
was like it went from 2 hours to an hour and a half, 4 days a week. But like I knew I needed the money. I could not go. Um,
Right.
but doesn't mean I didn't fall asleep on the highway a lot of times. Doesn't mean I didn't stay over my
Mhm.
homegirls. It was rough.
Mhm.
The grace of God, fools and
Yeah.
babies, fools and babies. So
Mhm.
yeah, and it's crazy too because once I finally came out, because when they call you for your transplant, it's like an organ donation. Like I don't
Mhm.
just to go and they schedule me. No, they schedule you when a bed opens up. And
Right.
so the first call was we didn't get to go. We ended up turning around on the highway. They called us back immediately. The second time we went, but we had to wait for the bed for a while. Um,
Mhm.
but even with that process, I was a business owner before I went back to corporate. So I had gotten an insurance policy that I barely could pay for sometimes every month. By the grace of God, that policy is what saved me. So I called my old broker and I was like, hey, any chance there's a cancer clause in there? She was like, yes, it is. So I was able to cash out that policy
Oh,
and kind of
good.
survive off of that, that
Mhm.
payout. And then at the time we had Blue Cross Blue Shield at work, which phenomenal because they gave us like a $10,000 credit card
Mhm.
and it covered housing and transportation. Food, we were on our own, but housing and transportation. So if the ex-husband and my son came up, they could get a room, on that card. He could pay
Mhm.
for gas. Like that alleviated a lot of pressure during that time.
Okay. So, are there any resources that you mentioned the camp? Are there any other resources that those watching should know about? And if I don't know if it's different from state to state because there's I see Nevada checking in too, and Michigan. That they may want to check out in their own or resources that they need to maybe check out in their own state.
Yeah. Um, for it depends, right? So of course you have your national thing. So you always want to look for your specific cancer.
Hmm.
Of course, breast cancer is the most financially covered. So there's tons of resources for them. It gets a little bit more complicated when you're looking at the rare diseases. So
Yeah.
even there's opportunities for literally it's called rare illnesses or rare diseases. There's blood cancer foundations. Be the Match. I was super active with them at one
Hmm.
time. Even
Hmm.
kind of an ambassador here, doing fundraisers and such. So excuse me, they're a big proponent for not only research in the field, but helping where they can financially. So sometimes they have smaller grants. So that's Be the Match and the Leukemia Foundation. So anything that's blood related, the Leukemia Foundation will help with. Um, but then locally, you may have some churches that have some funds available specifically for the sick and shut in.
Hmm.
Um, Atrium, actually, I've actually had to tap into Atrium here lately. I don't even know how I found it, but the Atrium Foundation has internal programs for their employees. So that's another big one you want to look at if you're an employee of like a big foundation or corporation. But they also have smaller things that they help with community members. And if
Hmm.
they can't help, then they have connected with several churches in the area that can help you with utilities or a car payment, things like that. So it really is talking to your caseworker and
Hmm.
asking them resources they are familiar with, and then just kind of spreading the word, like just not being reluctant to share your story so that you
Hmm.
can get the information that you need.
Absolutely. Going back to the mental aspect for a second,
Mhm.
because it does sound like an emotional roller coaster because you've got to worry about the finances, then you've got to worry about the fear, the uncertainty, but then you're also like, I've got to have hope and have that mindset. What practices did you do along with? I know you were praying, but what else did you do? Did you
Right,
journal, meditate, do some yoga? What did you do?
right. All of the above. So it's so funny. Me and my homegirl, whose mother passed away from cancer, we were talking the other day, and she's seeing a therapist, and her therapist is like, you should really be journaling. And I've heard that so much. I'm a
Mhm.
great writer, but when I'm forced to write, now I no longer want to do it. Right. And
Same.
so I was really on this like search for answers and whatever that looked like. So that
Mhm.
was me really talking to my aunt Tana, who's my dad's baby sister, but from a prophet standpoint, like are there specific scriptures I need to be focused on? Even my birth mother, who is very religious, is having those conversations with those two ladies really helped me from a moral standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I dug into spirituality. Like, the church only goes so far with us. I think they don't want to scare us away. But just like there's light, there's dark. And so what does that look like? Did I pull some force in that I didn't mean to? You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
really getting into my spirituality, and just, tapping into light and bringing that guidance in. I did, oh my gosh, I did Reiki, I did yoga, but
Mm-hmm.
with yoga, I really mostly did it for my back. And
Yeah.
as counterintuitive as that seems, that helped
Mm-hmm.
my back pain so much. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yes, ma'am, all the things, anything that's going to bring me healing and peace. Because once I
Yeah.
really understood that disease really stems from stress, that was a game changer. So I really
Mm-hmm.
became about managing my stress levels.
So, how are you today on November 13th, 2025? How are you today? Are you in remission? I know, Kim was also on our kidney disease awareness. I think that was earlier this year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, tell us how you are.
So, like I said to you the other night when you called, I said these people are going to think I'm the bionic woman. So every day is different. Like this week, today's a good day, but
Mhm.
this week I'm just over it. I am so freaking over dialysis and hooking up on this machine. I am over it. And the thing about the dialysis or the kidney is they're not sure if my kidney issues stemmed from the 7 different regimens of treatment that I had because
Mhm.
chemo.
Yeah.
Um, or if the amyloid attacked my kidney, and of course my doctor is like, absolutely not. They're going to try to blame it on the amyloid. It's not the amyloid. So I have
Mhm.
all these answers, but I don't really know which one it is, which is kind of irrelevant. But for my personality, I like to kind of know like this is what
Right.
what happened here. Um, yeah, super. Like I told both my nurse and my doctor, I'm like, I go through these ebbs and flows where I'm just like super sick of this machine, and I have to be careful because I know I won't hook up, and I
Mhm.
have to, that literally is what is cleaning my kidneys, right? And
Yeah.
so I try to stay out of that stubborn mindset when I'm going through that. But overall, like I just saw Dr. Voorhees, my oncologist. Just saw him last Friday, and so we see each other I think every 6 weeks. So
Mhm.
that's a trade off of me not doing maintenance drugs is to see him
Okay.
that frequently. And so if things start going downhill, then it goes back to once a month.
Mhm.
But it's just as long as I'm cancer free, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And I think even with the kidney, there I still have a tool to be able to move forward and live daily, you know what I mean, until
Mhm.
that transplant comes through. So, just got to stay hopeful and keep my eye on the silver lining because it can go downhill really fast, especially this time of year. It's cold, it's dark.
Yeah.
I'm not been outside, like, so really make sure that even doing like my sound bowl meditations at night when I go to sleep, just anything to kind of keep my vibration high to keep my mind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how has survivorship changed your priorities, your relationships? It sounds like your outlook on life is still great.
Yeah.
And so, what does thriving look like for you now?
Mm. Um, I think it's continuing to be present,
Hmm.
continuing to be mindful, to be a game changer, um, to be active in my kid's life and to not because sometimes I have this feeling like, because I lost my mom in my 20s. And so
Hmm.
she was there when I had my first child, but not when I had my second. So I sometimes will go into this space where I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't get too close. Like I don't want to leave them and they're going to hurt just as bad as I did. And I'm like, that's stupid. Like you can't not do
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? And so I kind of have those back and forth conversations with myself. But really it is like there's so many people that don't make it. And
Hmm.
that and but to that same account, like that's a lot of freaking pressure. Because it's like,
Yeah.
why did this person not make it through their journey and I did? Like, what am
Hmm.
I supposed to be doing with that? And so with that, again, that comes that responsibility to be more, to do better. And that could be totally self-imposed. But that's the way
Hmm.
I look at it. I feel like I was given a gift more than once, and
Yeah.
I need to show up in the world for that. So I kind
Hmm.
of go that direction.
Okay. Well, Kim, I want to thank you for one answering the phone when I randomly called and asked you to do this panel, and being transparent and continuing to share your story because I think that is a huge part of of advocacy and creating awareness, because I think this was powerful because people could see and hear directly from someone that's been through it and see that you are thriving.
Right. Thank you.
Because let me tell y'all, Kim be busy, y'all.
I just be doing me, and then somehow, somewhere, people pay attention, and they're like, "Oh, you just did that and that. We should talk about it." So
Uh-huh.
I'm just
Yeah. I'm gonna brag on Kim for a second, y'all. Kim is she is a who's who in Charlotte. Um, got all dressed up and went to went outside after, it was dark outside and
right,
cold. She was
right.
out there, getting her accolades and so congratulations to you for
Thank you,
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
So you
it was
are
amazing.
thriving.
Yes, try my best. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I made the announcement, well, a soft announcement, to a couple of core organizations here. So I'm running for House, North Carolina House for my district in Concord. So
Mhm.
that will start here soon as well. So we'll see how that goes. I'm
Yeah. See,
excited,
I
but I'm
told
also
you.
terrified.
Yeah. I told you were busy. See, you are out here still, still encouraging everybody and still fighting
Yeah,
for your community. So thank you again. And let everybody know where they can find you, because since you did say you do have the document that you can help folks out.
got you.
Because I feel like we're going to get that question of how can
Right.
I find her?
Right. So all of my social is Kim Delaney, Delaney. I think .co, but you just put Kim Delaney in, look for the little brown girl. That's me.
Mhm.
And my email is my name, so it's just Kimberly S Delaney at Gmail. So feel free. I have no, and I actually just updated it too because some of the links had went dormant. So it's just something that I keep updated and revolving for the people that need it.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Um, for more information on multiple myeloma, and we talked about a lot of things. So there's a lot of articles on blackdoctor.org that you can check out, and resources and tools, and make sure you check out the ones that Kim mentioned tonight as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight for the 2025 blackdoctor.org Cancer Awareness Summit. And if you missed any of our earlier panels, they're still available for viewing. You can just go back, run it back down the page, or go to the YouTube channel. There's powerful conversations on breast cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer. And of course, if you want to rewatch this one, you can as well. So, and I want to do a special thank you again, Kim, because this was so powerful and the best way I could think of to end tonight's summit. So thank you again. And I see a lot of good information. So you out here touching folks still, so hopefully you will come back, or I'll call you at some random time and be like, hey girl, what you doing?
Not a problem.
Well, thank you to those in the chat and everybody watching. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.
Good night.